Welcome to a brand new episode of John the PM podcast, where we believe that managing projects is not just a job, but a way of life. Today's episode, a special individual actually joining me today, and she willingly noted that she would share her PMP journey and some of the lessons learned that she kind of came from it. So so I'm kind of hinting around it, but on the camera is Elise. And she shares the same last name as myself. Now, you did an online proctor test, is that correct?
I went to.
Oh, you went to the testing center?
Yeah,
why did you decide to go to the testing center as opposed to online?
Well, I knew I'd be less responsible if the internet went out in the building than I would be if it went out in my apartment.
Yeah. I usually coach people to do it, they go to the testing center. From my own perspective, I think it's just something about going to a separate center, getting out of the car, getting your game face on, as opposed to just kind of like waking up, rolling over, and going to your home office, kitchen table, whatever, to take the test. I personally, however, I'll also say this: I have had zero difference in performance on either one, but I do prefer the
Yeah.
on those pieces. And I think the what you said, you're actually less responsible for like internet failures, hardware issues, and it's just one less thing to kind of worry about on those pieces. At least you just so you know, and also our audience, PMI has instituted some additional security protocols, mainly for the online community and online proctor test, meaning taking it at home, just to alleviate from like cheating and things of that nature. And they have like these remote things. I can send you a whole like dossier on it and explain all the details. But basically, they kind of monitor you during the entire test so that afterwards they go and review it and make sure that there's no shenanigans that are happening or anything of that nature. And then you get your official report. With that as a backdrop, when you finished the test, describe, did they like, how did they gave you the preliminary results and then a few days later the official? How did that actually occur?
Yeah, I finished the exam and nothing happened. And I was waiting for pass, honestly, to pop up on my screen, but it didn't. And they didn't say fail either, you try again. Then I went out to the hallway and went to the front desk thinking like maybe there's something that they printed out to give to me. I've had that experience on other standardized exams. And so I told her I was done, not really asking for a printout, but she gave me one. And that's where I got the preliminary pass. And I think it was, probably 36 hours, 48 hours that I got like the official email that said, okay, you passed, and gave me the score report too. Well, I don't know, I actually looked at score report, but it gave me like the ATT.
Okay. Yeah. In other words, you crushed the exam.
Yeah, or ATT. Yeah. So it was good.
Above target. Yeah. You just say, I did it. Yeah. I am the Uber project manager. Come on, bring it on. Is that what you're really saying?
I felt good. I felt good in the process of taking the exam. Some of it I was like, is this too easy? But I think that's a reflection of the preparation materials that TMOG Learning Center had provided, because they were hard. There were parts of it you remember I was crying at your kitchen table. I was like, I might have to move this exam back, and I was quite stressed about it, and I was very flustered. But by the time I got to the actual exam, I felt like pretty good in that moment of test taking.
So I am being open and vulnerable, as we like to say. It was really kind of neat seeing an individual up close and personal actually studying for the test. That was a unique experience for me. Because a lot of times people are remote or things of that nature. I will say this though, the questions, and I know I'm your dad and all that kind of stuff. But the reality is that a lot of folks do just give me a call like right before the test, or as they're studying with those questions, they on those areas. And I actually prefer and encourage people to do that. Because I cannot understand how anybody can go through that course. And we go through it, but it's a lot of material in a short amount of time. And I cannot understand how anybody would not have any questions afterwards. So, for those who went, who are in my universe, just to kind of reach out on those pieces. But yeah, that you gave me another appreciation just for how much stress people are under. Now, having said that, the was I encouraging or discouraging?
I don't know. You weren't discouraging. I think I just was like, you're my dad. Like, you're going to be nice about it. So I think I had a little bit of a struggle there in actually believing that I was ready to take the exam. And honestly, by the time I got to exam date, I think I was just like, I've done everything I can do at this point. I've studied, I've read the book, I tried to read it twice. You said that probably wasn't necessary. But I did read everything, like at least once, and had done the quizzes multiple times and really thought about why each answer on each quiz that I was doing was probably about 800 questions when it's all said and done. Like why each answer was the correct answer and why each incorrect answer was incorrect too. So I'd really pushed myself in that mental space, using those materials and having you as a resource to ask those questions, that I did feel that there was nothing left that I could have done if I didn't pass this exam.
Yeah, I want to hinge off that last point first. All you're responsible for doing is everything that you can do to the best of your ability. And if you've done that, everything else will work out. From my perspective, you did everything, textbook perfect, in the regards of really trying to understand the material. Now, I did kind of mention that, some of the quiz questions you're just not going to agree with, or just like, whatever. Don't try to hit that 100%. It's just going to drive you up the wall, drive me up the wall. But if you're hitting that 80, 90%, at least in my world, you are more than prepared for anything that kind of comes up, and on those side. I had another individual who had also just recently passed the exam, and that individual was expressed their concerns. Yeah, much like you did on it. And that individual was pretty much like you. They did everything they could, and when it was all said and done, they were, they did most outstanding on those pieces. But I really do appreciate it when yes, there is a proximity for, when you were, some of you are like away because you actually live some distance from me, a few hours, from me. But when you kind of visited us over the holidays, so proximity was obviously there. But I do appreciate it when, folks just give me a call. A lot of times I don't know if they actually believe me. But the last thing I want is for somebody to, I want them to struggle, but not to struggle too much to where they stop.
Yeah.
And that's the balance that I always kind of worry about, on those pieces, because sometimes there is, and correct me if I'm wrong, okay? Correct me if I'm wrong. Sometimes there's this fear of failure, and you just don't want to let people down, or you made this public declaration and it's less than optimal. And I know where that kind of, that puts in a lot of additional stress. Is that a true statement?
Yeah, everybody, all my colleagues knew I was taking this exam. They also recognize it's hard though too, and that a lot of people do fail it the first time because they don't go into it with the right mentality or preparation. So I knew they would not be of a significant amount of judgment if I didn't have the outcome that I wanted. And then also, honestly, Dad, you have a school around it. So as your offspring, it might not look too great if I didn't pass it. So I felt that pressure, honestly.
Yeah, I know, and I appreciate it. I had very little concerns.
Like I
Like
gotta pass.
gee, on those pieces. But you are a high performer, and your high school endeavors. You're a high performer in high school, college, and in the workplace and personal professional life. On those areas. But trying to hit perfection, that's very problematic. So I do want to be respectful of your time, because you have a lot going on those areas. I think we kind of touched the bases, about how you got to where you're going, in those areas, a little bit of your background, on those, kind of leading up to the exam, some of the logistics that are involved, the stress level. The stress level is real. It is. Um, I, all I can say is kind of like just jumping into the pool and going swimming. In those areas, on those pieces. You gave some new insights, especially. Thank you for talking about that Greenwich Mean Time. Sometimes it's the details that like, oh, that's what it is, on those areas. And how do you think this will impact your life going forward?
I really honestly enjoyed really honing in on the project management concepts because I felt like it slowed down my thinking and the way that I was doing work, and gave me a different way of approaching it. Right. So really being able to learn these different processes and like initiation from the planning to execution, how that really it really gave a clear idea of how I should be approaching the work and gave me practical steps that I can be taking. So I work for a smaller organization. I'm not a Fortune 500 where some of these processes have already been tested and evaluated on, but having the ability to sort of experiment with which project management concepts may actually be more relevant to the organization that I'm in, I think is going to be extremely valuable to the company that I'm at.
That's a real good point. A lot of times when training sessions, I've had this experience on both sides of the fence. So let's just use me as an example. The organization will send me to a training event. I'll go to the training event, take 1,000 pages of notes, get all fired up, come back to the workforce ready to try something, and they would say no. Yeah, so that does become a little problematic. Your organization in particular, I kind of look at it from the outside in, is really good for experimentation. And I really encourage organizations to do that. Just keep the experiment small and
Mm-hmm.
short, see if it works. If it doesn't work, don't do it. If it does work, replicate and move on. Yeah, on those pieces. So I really applaud the fact that your organization really is not afraid to try new things, in those areas and see how it really comes back in. And of course, just as a reminder, you actually become the trainer. You
Mm-hmm.
become the guide, the sage, the mentor, in those areas. Because when you introduce some of it back to your organization, they're going to look at you like you had two heads and like, where's this coming from? And so you have to be a little patient and kind of, just give it, like, let's see if it works, type attitude, and kind of move forward. But yeah, I know that all great things, will continue in your life. I really do appreciate it. We can go on for another 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like literally, but I want to try to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because I know this is a Friday evening for you, up in the capital region. Yeah.
So there's that. But honestly, before we end, I think the biggest lesson learned for myself was also just to not keep pushing the date back, because it added to the logistical stress, but it also just kind of, you lose momentum. Because I at one point had planned on taking the exam like in November or October, and I just kept pushing it back until it got to a point where I had other priorities coming up where I needed to just get this exam out of the way. And I had done everything else but the intense studying.
That's true. Usually when people into class and they say, well, I'll get around to it, I want to study it some more and then I'll set a date. I can almost guarantee that about 90% of them will never get to it. It's almost better to just go ahead and set a date in the sand and just drive right towards it. We are usually people that kind of sign up for this kind of work. They're kind of driven anyway, and they will come to the occasion. So thank you for mentioning that about the need. Don't wait. Just go on ahead and go forth and do great things. So that's awesome. So let's close this out. I really appreciate it, Elise. That was awesome. So I really appreciate your time, effort, and energy on those areas. So to everyone else, if you are looking for more information on how to become a great project manager, don't forget to hit that like button and be sure to subscribe to John the PM.